Hello everyone, and welcome to Senior Susie Stamps. I'm glad you're with me today. I have a printable that was available through Saturday, March 14th to you all. This is a new series that we're going to start called Make With Me. So as we go along, I will make printables available until the Saturday before the video comes out. These are not going to be live because I can't figure that out. I'm sorry. It's just too much for my little old brain. At any rate, this is the first one, and it has two sheets. It has the basic paper. Excuse me, I got it rolled off here. It has the basic paper, and then it has some ephemera that goes with it. It also has a cutting diagram for cutting. One thing you'll notice on these cutting diagrams, the lines don't go all the way to the outside, and it's because when I print my paper, and it may be different for you, I don't know, but whenever I have printed a digital, I always have that white band around it. So the first thing we're going to do is cut 1/4 of an inch off all around this paper before we start making cards. I wanted to mention for just a minute about our angel policy, because these digitals come from Canva, and I have a pro version which gives me the license to use them. And I don't sell things, and the agreement with you all should be that you won't sell these things either in the state that they are presented to you in the PDF forms, because that's just part of the angel policy, and it gives the creators their due through my pro account, and then you can use them to make cards with and send to your friends or your family and feel welcome to use them. Let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and cut my first cuts on that. And let's talk about that. What I'm going to do is cut 1/4 of an inch off this side and 1/4 of an inch off this side, and then I'm going to take my 4 inches off of each end. So let's do that first. Nice thing about having this video recorded is that you can stop and start it again as you move along in your process. And before we leave today, I want to show you the paper that we'll be using next week as well. And all I ask that you do is email me with the paper name and the title so that I can email you the forms back. Now, because this is a 8-inch cutting deck, I can't cut the long line off first. So let's go ahead and cut our 4 inches off, and then we'll cut the remaining pieces more easily that way. So that's 4 off the left side, and then I'm going to bring 4 off the right side and leave the middle for its own separate card. Well, and I just didn't do that right, did I? Fiddle-dee-dee. Well, that's okay. You might make that same mistake eventually also. So let's just work with this, because I got plenty of examples using the card cutting diagram exactly as it is. And since I made that mistake, let's not worry about it and just keep moving through this video. Now, the narrow strip I am going to set aside for now, and I'm going to work on these 4-inch pieces. What I want to do is take enough off of this piece, because I'm going to cut it to 5 1/4 inches. So what I'm going to do is look at my 5 1/4 inch mark here and see how much of that I want to have left on the top of my card. And I think it's about maybe right there on this piece. So this piece can either go up underneath the sentiment, or it could go on the inside of the card. So we'll set it aside. And then I'm going to turn and cut this piece to 5 1/4. This piece gets used in the card over here, so I'm going to set it with that. And here's the first card. Let's go ahead and do our second cut as well. And this one may be a little bit deeper on the top because, see, I'm looking up at the 5 1/4 now. And I'm going to pull that down where I've got this full flower in. Right about like that. And then I'm going to cut the bottom off. So I have a little bit bigger piece here. And I'm going to turn and cut it at 5 1/4. And this piece also goes to this other card over here. So here's our 2 card fronts for the first 2 cards that we're going to make, and I'm going to put those onto some side fold cards, and we'll make the 3rd card a top fold card. Let's go ahead and get these glued down. Looks like I might need to burnish my card bases just a little bit. I hand score and fold all of my card bases, and I don't usually burnish them too hard when I make them. I usually do that when I start to use them. So this just glues down, but before we do that step, I would like to add a little bit of ink around the outside, and I keep Memento Rich Cocoa on my desk for using for doing a little bit of distressing. Well, I can't find my... Oh, here it is. My ink blender. There we go. I'm just going to use this little foam rubber. I don't know where these came from. I think it might have come from the Dollar Tree, but they work just fine for this process. And you can see I've cut the end of this off more than once probably. And I'm just going to put a little bit of brown edge around this just to give this card a little bit of depth. I hope you've been having a good week. We have taken the workbooks to the printer this week, and I have printed copies now. The big book, actually, I made a little post on the Facebook page, and the complete book with the sketches and card pictures has already gone out the door, so I had to go back to the printer on Friday, and they'll be back in on Wednesday. I thought I would do a little video and show you all the books from the printer. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing them or not, because I'd kind of like to have y'all get one if you're interested in them at all. And of course, that will be U.S. only. The international postage is just treacherous, so we'll have to figure out another way to do an international workbook where I email it to you and you print it, but I'm not sure exactly how to do that yet, so we'll talk about that later. So this is the card base for the first card. I'm going to do the same thing for the second card. And on the ephemera pieces, I'm going to be I will be doing some fussy cutting as well as using some circle punches. So if you have circle punches in your stash, I think you'll find this a pretty easy card to put together with very little fussy cutting. Now there's going to be some, because we're going to cut the body of the hummingbird and a few other little things here. Okay, I'll glue this one down, and then we'll move to the third card base and get it put together. So this is a side fold card. There we go. And then we'll do the trimming on these pieces to get the little white strips off, remember. And what I'm going to do with these two little pieces here is cut them to about 1 3/4 inches. Both of them. So that's one more usable strip, which we may or may not use. And then I want to cut this piece. I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2 on this one. So that is to this point. This is probably going to be waist, but maybe not. We'll see. Trim it down just a little bit more off of this bottom so that I get the top of that flower in. And you may have to work with these just a touch to get them to where you like them. There we go. So there's that panel now. And see, this one has a little hummingbird in it as well. I'm going to go ahead and cut the white edge off of this piece that we just cut off the top of that one. And then I'm going to cut this in half to 1 inch. And I'll show you where we're going to put that in just 1 minute. And now we're ready to put the third card together. And I'm going to do the same thing with inking my edges. It adds just enough depth to these cards to make them a little bit more interesting. One thing I've noticed, and you probably have noticed it on your print if you asked for these pages, canvas seems to flatten the image when you do the print, and I don't know how to make that any better. I've already got the quality of the print that I send to you as high quality as I possibly can. Now on these, there's going to be more white dots on one side or the other, and I want them on the outside. So what I want to do is put my distressing ink on those sides so that I remind myself how to put them on the card, like that. And then this one I'm going to keep, I think I'll keep this side on this one. So let's kind of review for a second here. These two panels are what we cut off the top of these two cards. These two panels are what we cut off the top of this card. And what we're going to do is to use those for spacers on the top and on the bottom. So what I want to do is trim them down just a smidge to make them a little bit less wide than that is. And they may not need to be quite as wide as they are here, because it looks like I don't need quite that much. So I'm just going to trim a little bit more off of these. All those are doing is leveling out the card on the card front for us. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. And then we're going to put that center panel up on some foam tape after we put our levelers on. But you wouldn't necessarily have to do that. I'm going to try to put these pieces in the middle. Right like that. I'm going to glue this one up and do the same thing. Let me know in the comments whether you think you're going to like this Make With Me series. I think it'd be fun. I'm just really not coordinated enough to do a live all by myself, to watch the computer and all that, to be participating with you. So you'll see where I'm going with this piece, don't you? And what I want to do is to glue those into the center of this card, and then we'll put this up on foam and put it on top of them. But now remember, I've trimmed these two pieces down just a smidge, so they're not going to be quite as wide as this piece. See what I'm talking about? It's just not quite as wide. But we're going to put it in the center of the card. All right, like that. That doesn't look in the center to me. That looks in the center to me. Okay, here we go. We're going to do the other one now. There we go. Now I'm going to put this up on some foam tape. Let's see, I need about that much. talked about my foam tape recently. I suppose we might have some new folks on the channel. This is 1-inch foam tape that I buy in reels from Amazon. It's very inexpensive. And this is release paper from whatever I get that has release paper on it. I'll tell you what this piece came from. It's from some scratching protectors for my couch because Snickers has decided she thought she could claw my couch. But at any rate, I save all release papers on everything exactly for this type of project because it works so well for me on my foam, because I don't like having to pull all those little pieces of backing off. Not only do I find it tedious, I find it difficult with my arthritis in my hands to do that. Even when I use my little pick tool, it's just complicates my life. So that's one little thing that I've gotten rid of. Now let's go ahead and mount this little guy up in the middle of this card, and we're going to bring him all the way to the end and all the way to the top. Okay, so here's our 3 card bases, right like that. Now, let's pause for a minute and look at these little pieces over here and kind of refresh our memory of what's going on here. This is a nice little striped piece. I'm going to cut that white bar off, and we'll stick it inside of one of these cards. I'm going to cut it to 1/2 inch. And I'm going to put a little ink on it. Just because my ink's still sitting here. And that kind of helps to tie things along in the process. And I'm going to put all of these little strips at the bottom of my cards, because when we get to the fussy cut page, we'll be able to put some additional things in our cards that way. Let's go ahead and put this one in here. And I'm going to set it up from the bottom just a little bit and then have an equal border on all 3 sides. So there's one. And then I think I'll do this one here. Maybe I'll do it here, and then I'll put this one there because it actually is the one that came off of this one. Just trimming that white piece off and cutting it down to 1/2 inch. I find that 1/2 inch is a real good strip on the inside, and I'm going to put a little bit of brown ink around it. Let's hold off on putting this one in and put this other one in the other card. I forgot when I redid the printables on this, I made one of them so that it would be an inside card panel. I'm glad I remembered that before I glued it down, because it would have been kind of wasted if I hadn't. Okay, now let's glue this one in that one. My cutter out of the way here. And I'm going to make sure that this is going the right way up. And I'm just going to put it right down in there. And now these cards are ready to put the fussy cut elements on. So before we start that, let me cover my ink and clear off my workspace a little bit. So we have these 2 pieces, actually these 3 pieces, that we can use for elevating sentiments perhaps, or elevating elements, let's just put it that way. And these really are scraps. I suppose I should tell you that this is 65-pound accent smooth white paper that runs through my printer. And my printer is a inkjet all-in-one printer from HP, and it pulls that weight paper. It also pulls 40-pound presentation paper well through the printer tray, and so that's what I use in my studio for printing things. Let's look at these cards now, and then we'll pull the fussy cut elements out and make a plan with those. Here's a nice birthday card, and you can see I've elevated up a little fussy cut element here and here, and I've cut a butterfly. The birthday wishes is elevated up on foam, and I have put 3 little gems on this card, and there's a little fussy cut element on the inside of this one. Here's another birthday card, and I just cut a circle and then cut it off part way so that I could put these 3 flowers on that I fussy cut out. And this little hummingbird is also fussy cut. There's nothing on the inside of this card. We will have some leftover ephemera on this, so I'll try to remember to put something in there. Here's one that I made with the first sheet of paper that I printed, actually, and I did some flowers that I punched because I hadn't done the ephemera page yet, and there's a little butterfly, Easter blessings that I fussy cut out, and then I went back after I did the ephemera and added some little flowers on the inside of this card. This is another one that came from the second piece, I think, that I cut, because it has the ephemera on it, and I added the little hummingbird here. I hadn't added it to the center of that card yet, but it really was missing something up there. So I went back in and edited my Canva file and added the little bird in the middle. And then I just did some additional little pieces on the inside of that card. Here's another one, fussy cut little butterfly that's also on the sheet. And I added, I don't know if you can see it or not, but these flowers are layered up. There's also a little bit of white pen work on these, and another one of those little trio flowers on the inside. Here's another one, and again you'll notice some white pen work on these flowers. I hope you can see it. Here, I'll give you a little reference point here to look. So you can add a little extra ink and dots to that, and of course this little butterfly is on the same one that has the little butterfly down here, and it just kind of finishes the card out nicely. There's nothing on the inside of this one, so when we get finished up, I could possibly put something else on this one. In fact, it's possible that I could put that piece on there, couldn't I? Let's see how that might look. I'll think about that. Okay, so those are the cards that I've made with this paper so far, just to give you some ideas. Now, let's go ahead and look at the fussy cut sheet. What did I do with it? Oh, good gracious. Oh, here it is. I see it now. And I'll show you what my plan is here. And I hope it works. I added this little page later, and that's the inside panel that I was talking to you about that will go on this one that we didn't put anything in. So I'm going to try to work it first so we can get this one card kind of finished up. What I want to do is take my scissors and cut this section out. And I'm going to be aware that I'm going to be cutting these sentiments as we go along here. So I'm just going to cut right here. And what I've probably just done is forced myself to fussy cut the yellow one. In the past, I have used a circle punch on that. So now I want to go ahead and cut this off. And you'll notice it's 3.5 by 4 3/4 is the plan on this panel. So I'm going to flip my card over and cut it to 3.5. There we go. And then I'm going to cut this little edge off here where the print didn't go all the way down. You know, it was that 1/4 inch stuff we've already talked about a little bit. There we go. And now I'm going to measure it to 4 3/4. And so that makes a very nice inside panel for this card. Let's go ahead and put it in. And that goes on this one. I'm just going to put a little glue on the top of this. It's a little different than what you normally see me use. Rather than glue it all the way down. There. And that's a very nice way to finish the inside of that card. It's easy to do. You can handwrite your little sentiment, or you can stamp on these very nicely. So that card's finished. Now let's go back and look and see what we've got here. I'm going to try a 1-inch circle punch. This is a 1 inch. I'm going to try it right here. Oh, I did leave myself enough. Isn't that fine? So there we go. And then I think I'll try to do a little hummingbird. And maybe this other little hummingbird. You're going to have to cut just a tiny little bit of him off, I'm afraid. But that is okay. And then I'm going to fussy cut this one. And I'm not going to do a lot of detail cutting. But I am going to go right up into the flower and take away that white edge border there. It doesn't take long to do this, and what you want to do is hold your scissors still and then move your paper. See how my scissors never move? Except, of course, to close the throat down, but they're not wiggling back and forth. What you're doing is turning your paper, and that makes fussy cutting a lot easier. This is something good to do when you're sitting in front of the TV and the commercials are on. But I wanted to do this with you today just so you can see that it just doesn't take very long. And I know people say, oh, I hate fussy cutting. But I think if you'll try doing it this way, where you just move the paper and just listen to some music or sit out in the sunshine and enjoy a minute with the birds and do a little fussy cutting, you'll find that it's really quite relaxing. Just another little second here, and we'll be finished with this one. I try to cut my excess off where I'm not trying to wiggle my scissors around in it, because that just creates a little bit more of a headache than you really need. So that piece is ready now to use. And I'll do the same with this one. What I want to do now is clear my butterfly so I can cut my sentiments. There we go. And let's go ahead and do those. I believe I will try a circle punch on my Easter blessings and just see what it looks like in the throat of the punch. If I can get that on there, I can. Let's go ahead and try one with a punch because it will make it a lot easier for us. There we go. And then you are in my thoughts. I'm just going to bring it over to my trimmer here and give myself a good straight trim and give myself a starting point. There we go. And then I want to look and see if I need to adjust that at all. And I believe I might need to come just a tiny bit more off of this end, not much, of course. And probably once you ink this up just a little bit, it wouldn't be noticeable at all. There you go. This is kind of like cutting bangs. You can go back and forth and cut yourself out of paper. Ask me how I know that. Now I'm going to make this a 5/8 inch sentiment, and that's halfway between 1/2 and 3/4. So it's 5/8 times 3 1/4 on that sentiment strip right there. So we've got 2 sentiments. We also have some paper left here to do another sentiment, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that now in VersaFine and let it dry for a while we're fussy cutting the rest of these little elements. And it says with a grateful heart, so this is going to be a little thank you card. And I'm going to make that right here. I hear Cordelia over there playing with her toys again. She kind of likes to get in on the video act. Okay, there we go. Looks like I got a little bit of ugh right there. Well, we will stamp that again on the back side. No worries. That stuff happens every once in a while. Now, let's go ahead and see if we can punch this little guy out. So that's that 1 inch punch again. I got a little close, but it's all right, because the 1 inch size is what was planned for that. And the 1 inch size is what's planned for these little pink flowers as well. And so now I'm going to go ahead and clear my hummingbirds here. I'll set that aside and re-stamp the back side of it. And I'm going to go ahead and punch these little guys out. With that same 1 inch punch. And this little flower here. So you can see, if you use some of your punches, this is a fairly easy fussy cut sheet to do. There's not that much that has to be done. Now I'm going to go up a size to 1 1/4. Where did that punch go? There's 1 1/2. Oh, here's 1 1/4. This is an EK punch, and I'm going to try to do these butterflies with that punch. Should work perfectly. For both of them. And you'll notice that they're the reverse of each other. One's flying to the right and one's flying to the left. That's the nice thing about Canva. You can do that. And then this 1 1/4 is not quite large enough for these little hummingbirds, so I'm going to go up to 1 1/2, and we'll capture them that way. Now I probably will go back in and fussy cut some of these hummingbirds, because I wanted to stack them up in a decoupage on top of some of the rest of these flowers. So now that we've done all that punching and gotten everything out of the way for us, we can go back in and kind of trim these images out a little closer and fussy cut these flowers. So why don't you pause the video, because I'm going to pause the video and fussy cut mine. You go ahead and pause and fussy cut yours, and we'll get back together again in just a minute. Okay, I think I've got all the fussy cutting done that I want to do for right now. And this is the big flowers that came out of that. And I did the extra little one of these again. And you'll notice here that these are the reverse image of each other. And then I did one of my little hummingbirds because I want to put that on this card. I also went ahead and restamped this little guy and cut him out so that we wouldn't waste time doing that again. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started finishing these cards. And I think we'll start with this one and add some flowers to it. And this flower goes right over the top of that one, which is kind of nice. And then this one will go somewhere. I guess this is the one that goes that way, so we won't use it. We'll use those two on another, excuse me. We'll use those two on another card. I believe I'm going to put this little Easter blessings right up in here. Don't you think that'd be pretty? Let's go ahead and put a little bit of that brown edge on all of these little elements. I guess I should speak just a little minute about how you can get me to send you these. You need to email me, and it's seniorsusiestamps@gmail.com. That is in the description box below. And put the specific video that you're looking for. Now, again, it's only available through the Saturday before the video airs. So this one is already gone. And the next one will be available through next Saturday. So I'll talk about that again before we finish up today, just to drive the point home. And I'm going to hang this little piece off just a little bit, just to give it a little more interest and kind of bring it down here a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put a little brown edge on my flower. Just to give it a little differentiation from the flat card flower that's down below it. And we're going to put just a little bit of curl on the pieces that can curl. Not all of these will be able to curl, but some of them you can curl just a little bit. And like on this one, I think if we cut in just a little bit here, we might actually be able to get a little bit of curl on that back side of that one as well. And then I'm just going to put some glue in the center of that and just glue the center down. And I'm going to try to I'm going to try to go over the other flower in the same spot that it is with just a tiny little bit of twist on it so that the petals that are down below will show through just a little bit. And then I'm thinking probably I might like to have another little hummingbird come off, and I believe I'll fussy cut it as well. And it will have a little shorter beak because we did that little 1-inch circle punch on it. And there we go. So one more little fussy cut. And I'm cutting just inside this image so that we don't have white paper showing, if I can get that done without destroying the image. And you can see that didn't take but just half a little second there to get done. I'm also going to put just a little bit of curve on these wings. And then I'm going to put him up on the card. And I'm only going to put glue here. I think I might put just a tiny, tiny little piece of foam underneath those wings to give it a little bit of elevation. My allergies are acting up again. If you can hear it in my voice, I'm sorry. It's that time of year. Okay. And so this little guy is just going to come off like this. And then we need a little something something for the inside. And I think one of these little flowers would be a nice addition. I was going to put a little brown edge around that, but I forgot because I was yell-yakking. Sorry about that. I'm not sure these little images on the inside have to be distressed. But that makes a very sweet little Easter card to send to someone on your card list. Okay, let's keep moving on to these other two. Now this one is the one that I cut wrong, and so it should have had some big flowers on it, and I think because we didn't get those put on, we'll just add some because we can. How about that? But let's start with a sentiment, and I've gone ahead and re-stamped this one, and I think it will go nicely down here. I am going to put a little bit of brown edge on that and on the flowers. And I'm going to glue this one down flat. And put it kind of right with an equal border on three sides down here at the bottom. And this stamp was just a stamp in my stamp collection. I know you all have stamps that will do equally well. These little videos, Make With Me, are probably going to be just a little bit longer than the short videos I've been doing recently. So if you don't like that format, I'm sorry. We'll get through this series and then go back to some shorter cards probably. And on this one, I think I'm going to put it up on some foam, and I'm going to curl some of these little edges as I can, coming around these flower petals. And I might have to cut into some of them like I did before, just to get them to curl a little bit. Maybe come back and put just a little bit more of that brown ink to soften that edge some. Perhaps do a cut down in through here. It doesn't take long to do this at all. And then I'm going to put some little foam on the centers of these two flowers. And put them over on the side of the card. I may hang them off and I may not. Let's just see what we think when we get them done and over there. I think up there might be kind of nice. What do you think? Let's do it that way. See what we got here and here. And then we'll trim the sides off to square up the card just for another little element. And this is the one that we put those flowers on the inside, so that tied in really, really well. So there's number 2 card finished. Might go ahead and put my little hummingbird up on that. And again, I'm going to roll his wings and glue his body down and put just a tiny little piece of foam up underneath his wings to keep them from smashing down. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I got some new microphones lately after the first of the year, and I really like them. They're so much easier to deal with, and I think they have a better audio than the ones that we did have. So this should fit just right on top of that little bird, and the wings will be elevated for us then. There it goes, right like that. Isn't that a sweet card? I think so. Okay, let's go on to card number 3. and see what we've got left to add to that one. Looks like we might have a big butterfly. I mean, I keep calling them butterfly. We might have a big hummingbird to add, and we might have some butterflies. Let's look at the sentiment we're going to put down first and get that kind of coordinated. I think I will use a little bit of this to elevate my sentiment up some. And I'm going to use this thinner piece where it won't hang off the edge, just so we don't have a lot of waste on this. There's not much. These are kind of scraps that you probably won't ever use, so you might as well just pitch them if we don't use them today. And this is going to give this card just the tiniest little bit of elevation on the sentiment, because we're only going to glue on that little extra panel that we put in on the back, and that'll give your sentiment just a little bit of shadow work behind it. So I'm only going to glue on this blue piece here. You could put it up on foam, and that would be fine too. I'm going to bring this all the way to the edge of the card and get it leveled up. There we go. Right like that. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is just the tiniest little bit of shadow up underneath that, which just adds a little bit of interest to your cards. I think I'll fussy cut this little butterfly. And then we'll go ahead to the inside of the cards and add a few more things. I'm going to put this flower, I think, on this card as well. Maybe right here. Let's go ahead and get that done. And then I'll know where to put my other stuff. You will probably have some ephemera left over, but I think this ephemera is very, very usable in all kinds of different card aspects, so I don't think you'll have any trouble using it up. I'm going to put a little piece of foam right there in the middle. And put this kind of hanging over the sentiment just a little bit and just to the edge of the card like that. There we go. And there we go. Now, I'm wondering, do I want to do anything else to that? I think I'll add the same thing we just did. Go ahead and do a little cut here. And when I'm doing this part, I just cut the feet off when I'm adding him on top of another one. Well, whether I am or not. And I cut the little beak off as well, because the beak is already there. It's kind of like the antennae when you're doing butterflies this way. So this doesn't take but a couple of seconds to cut these out. And then I'll roll his wings. Put my tiny little strip of tape up underneath that to keep them elevated. And glue his body down right directly on top of that one. And that's what these were designed to do, to decoupage on top of each other that way. And so they should fit just perfectly. And you should have an extra set of wings back there that you can see then when you look at your card closely. I'm wondering if maybe just a couple of other flowers, and I'm looking at these actually. I think I'll fussy cut a couple of these and see how this process works. You just work with it and add what you want to add to your cards and fill them out and give them just a little bit of dimension or not. You don't have to. Depends on what your postal regulations allow you to do. Just trying to curve things out where they don't have a little square on them. I'm going to put this a little bit of edge on it and just put this up on a piece of foam and stick it down there, right there on top of that yellow flower. And it's already there. There. That's a very sweet little card. Now, let's see what we can do on the inside of this card as well. This would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's glue that down. I'll put a little bit of ink around the edges on this one, I think. And I'm just going to glue it down flat since it's on the inside. And there we go. Right like that. That gives it a nice little finish on the inside, doesn't it? This one is already nice and finished on the inside. And then we have this one, and I put one little flower there. This one doesn't have any yellow on the front. We could put a second one on there, but I don't think we will. I think we'll call this one done. How about that? So we have a few little tiny scraps to throw out. I'm not keeping these little cut-offs. These two little cut-offs they're just not worth fooling with, so put them in your recycle bin and feel good about it. And then these you can put in your little embellishment trays and have them come out and play another day because they're very, very useful for that. Now, let's look at these 3 cards. Easter blessings with a grateful heart. Nice thank you note. And you are in my thoughts. What a pretty little sympathy card this would be, or a get well card. Wouldn't that be a nice get well card for someone that maybe has been in the hospital? Okay, now let's look at the paper we're going to use next week, and that way you can decide if you want to come and make with me again. I decided to do blue, and this is the name of this paper is Fields of Blue, and I will leave a link in the description box below of the email address and the name of the file that you want to put in the subject. So if you want to have this, please feel free to email me this week, but please do so by Saturday. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you again soon. Let me know if you like this series. Bye, everybody.